Ready?
Hi, friends. Welcome back.
That's kind of fun. I survived.
The shark attacks of 1960.
Nice. It's a big old great white, I think. I survived. Oh, I like these that don't have the glossy pages. All right, here we go.
July 12th, 1916, Elm Hills, New Jersey, in the Matawan Creek.
A feeling of terror came over 10-year-old Chet Roscoe, a chill deep down in his bones. He had been swimming in the Matawan Creek by himself, but he had the idea that someone or something was watching him. And then he saw it, a large gray fin slicing through the water like a knife. What was that? Could it really be a shark? That was impossible. Elm Hills was miles and miles from the ocean. How could a shark find its way into this little creek? There was no way. But now Chet could see it coming toward him. The gigantic shark, bigger than Chet himself, the black eyes staring up through the water. Killer eyes. Chet dove toward the shore, pounding through the water, kicking with all his might. His feet touched the bottom. He was running now, looking over his shoulder. The shark was right behind him, its huge jaws wide open, its white dagger teeth gleaming in its blood-red mouth. Eek.
Chapter 2, 9 days earlier, July 3rd, 1916, 9 a.m., the Elm Hills Diner.
The Monday morning breakfast rush at the Elm Hills Diner was finally over. Chet's feet ached. He was covered in syrup, donut crumbs, and bacon grease. Yum. His curly red hair was damp with sweat, but he was...
Now that we mentioned bacon, I'm excited for our breakfast.
Right. Surprisingly happy. Uncle Jerry was paying him a fortune to help out at the diner this summer, 15 cents a day. That doesn't sound very high, does it?
No.
Chet liked being surrounded by family faces and hearing folks...
Familiar.
I'm sorry, thank you. And hearing folks calling out his name while he worked. Best of all, he was finally making some friends. His first since he came to live with Uncle Jerry last January. He was staying here for the year, while Mama and Papa were in California on business. Chet was wiping down the counter when the front door banged open. He smiled when he saw Dewey, Sid, and Monty rushing toward him. They came in every morning on their way to work at the tile factory. Chet had seen them at school, the loud boys who were always talking about baseball, but he hadn't gotten to know them until this summer. "Did you hear?" Dewey said, his freckly cheeks red with excitement. "You won't believe it," said Monty, whose spectacles were fogged up from the humidity. Let me tell him," said Sid, pushing his friends aside. He was the shortest of the three and always in charge. "It was a shark." And then they all stared, talking at once. "A shark attack. It was huge. Bit off a man's leg. There was blood everywhere. The man is dead." "It happened right in Beach Haven," said Monty. Beach Haven was about 70 miles south of Elm Hills, right on the Atlantic Ocean. Chet had heard about the fine hotels there and the people who swam in the ocean in their fancy bathing costumes, but he'd never heard of any shark attacks. Uncle Jerry appeared from the kitchen, his bright blue eyes shining and his thick, dark hair neatly combed back. The guys always stood a little straighter when they saw Chet's uncle. He'd been a baseball legend growing up here in Elm Hills. He could have gone pro, but he'd hurt his knee sliding home in a championship game. The team won, and Uncle Jerry could never play again. He still limped a little after a long day of work. "What's this about a shark?" he said as he passed out cinnamon donuts to each of the boys. "You fellas aren't trying to fool us, are you?" Chet knew the guys loved to pull pranks. On the last day of school, they'd put a frog in Minnie Marston's lunch pail. She was the prettiest girl in school, but she'd been so mad her face turned an ugly shade of purple. "We're not fooling. Monty said, pulling a rumpled piece of newsprint from his trouser pocket. Look at this, he said. He handed it to Chet. It was from the New Jersey Herald. The hair on the back of Chet's killer shark.
Attacks from...
Nick stood up as he read the story. Uncle Jerry read it over his shoulder. We'll pick up here. Killer shark attacks swimmer. Night, buddies.
Night.
Mm.